Okay, 6:33, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Our first item of business is public comments. So we've got 15 minutes. Anybody has anything to contribute? It's like our only member of the public is already on the agenda. So without anybody saying otherwise, we'll move right on. So agenda review. Do we have anything to add or subtract tonight? Okay. It's up to all of you. I'm ready. Okay. So we'll add that as 4D. And then, yeah, no, that's fine. Okay. Okay, then we'll get right into it. So we've got Jerry Fleury with us here from the town CIP committee. I think he's brought us some wonderful information. We all have a copy of the report in the drive too.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jerry Fleury. I'm the chair of the Pembroke CIP. And a purpose for my being on the agenda tonight is to review the CIP submissions for the coming school year. Essentially, you got the copy of the report, and I will only be speaking to the items from pages 28 through 30, which are the school district items. I will make comments on the rest of the CIP that I think contain information that, as a school board, you ought to have. But I'll reflect upon that after I get done covering the school items. Essentially, you had 5 items of appropriation and 4 items of expenditure. So starting on page 28, vehicle replacement capital reserve fund deposit. That's one of the funding request that you have for $7,000, and that accrues in a fund that, as you may know, accumulates so that when it comes time to replace a vehicle, you have sufficient funds there to be able to do that, and it doesn't cause a one-time spike in the year in which you make the procurement. Of that $7,000, there were 3 votes for high priority, 1 vote for medium, and 2 for low. Moving on to the school building capital reserve deposit, $155,000. That's used to repair buildings throughout the district. And the vote of the committee was 3 high priority, 2 medium, and 1 low. There's replacement flooring, which is an expenditure. That's from funds that are already in a capital reserve for $20,000. And that's repairs and replacement to flooring in the school buildings district-wide. The committee voted 2 high priority, 3 medium, and 1 low. There's a roof replacement, and that's to repair roofs or make roofing repairs district-wide. The amount requested for that is $90,000. That got 3 high priority and 3 medium priority votes. School technology capital reserve fund deposit, $10,000. I think the committee had a pretty good understanding of the importance that technology plays in your ability to deliver curriculum. And so that got 5 high priority and 1 medium priority vote. School site improvement capital reserve fund deposit, $200,000. Committee didn't have a good vision of exactly how that would be spent. As a result, it got 4 medium priority and 2 low priority votes. School equipment capital reserve fund deposit, $25,000. That's for the purchase of new equipment as it may be needed. The committee saw that as 4 medium priority and 2 low priority votes. An item of expenditure was replacement of cameras and general maintenance on the cameras at $10,000. That received 5 high priority and 1 medium priority vote. And finally, there was a district lawnmower replacement for $20,000. That got 1 high priority and 5 mediums. for those of you that may not know, the committee is not really empowered to approve or reject, only to look at the items, weigh them against all of the other obligations that the town has, and to assess a level of urgency. How important did the committee see that that expenditure was? Along those same lines, I want to drop back, as I said I would, and brief you on a couple of other items that we can expect to see next March. One of the items is that there will be a $15 million bond issue put out by the SOAR department. There has been a long-standing disagreement on how best to run the association between Allenstown and Pembroke. And the Pembroke commissioners have been in negotiations with Concord. And the theory there is that in order to be able to provide connections for some growth anticipated in Pembroke, that growth is not going to go through to Allenstown. And so the idea would be to reverse the pump station that's at Route 106, run a new line across to Integra Drive in Concord, and Concord has agreed that they would be willing to do this. Concord's plant, as we've been made to understand, is not running at full capacity. So there are economies of scale. If they can bring in additional flow, will help them to run their plant more efficiently. So that's what they get out of it. One of the difficulties that the committee had with this is that the sewer department didn't have any of the details. What was the unit costing going to be for gallonage going to Concord versus going to Allenstown? Also, they wanted to fund the payments on this bond with a combination of user rates and the general tax obligation. Now, that's been done once before. The sewer department put a line out Route 106. That was about $3.5 million. That was a combination of rate payer coverage and general tax obligation. In that case, however, the carrot that they had to dangle was the potential for bringing in industrial growth that would add to the tax base without necessarily increasing the cost. They can't necessarily tell us that that's going to happen. So this may be a tough sell, but just so that you know, there will be a bond issue for $15 million put out by the sewer department. Yes.
I'm just a little bit hard of hearing. Are you saying 1/5/15 or 5/0/50?
1/5/15. There will be one other bond issue, which is going to be made, and that's going to be for $600,000. The Public Works garage down on Exchange Street is in very bad condition. The westernmost wall is sinking into the ground, and as it sinks, it's leaning westerly. As a result of that, the strain on the building is such that if you close the end bay door, it's several inches from the ground on one end, and it touches the ground on the other. The rate of sinkage is increasing. And in the past, there were studies on what could be done, and they were talking about doing injections next to the foundation to try to bolster it. Two things have changed. One is that there's insufficient space at the town garage now, and there may be a better way of engineering the fix, and that way would be to extend an additional bay on the garage, take it all the way down, put a decent base on it, and connect the steel framework of that additional area to the existing building. So that end wall will no longer be a load-bearing wall. The new wall, properly constructed, will take over that role. The other thing that potentially adds to the price of that is that there are some new federal regulations on stormwater management that have gone into effect, affectionately known as MS4 regulations. The town vehicles are not allowed to be parked inside of a garage where meltwater containing road salt will drain into the runoff. It has to be separated and treated. So once you start making changes to a building like that, you have to bring it up to code for MS4. So that will make things a little bit more complicated. The storm drains or the drains in the existing garage will have to be changed. There were some other things that garage needed, and that would also be updated in that part of that bond issue. And there's another major expenditure that the selectmen still have not decided whether they would try to bond it or put it into the operating budget. But it's a $467,000 repair on a collapsing storm drain that drains everything from Broadway, Main Street, and all of the area in between. That currently runs down Exchange Street through Memorial Field and into the Merrimack River. Part of that line had to be serviced with emergency funds a couple of years ago. The line where it goes into the Merrimack River was collapsing. That had to be dug up, section of it replaced. But the rest of that line from the base of Exchange Street down to where the previous repair was made also needs to be replaced. And the complexity there is that line has to cross under high pressure natural gas line. So there's going to be a lot of, oops, let's be careful on this. And that translates into dollars. So the number that they're looking at is 467,000. So those things are going to have some kind of an impact on the tax rate. Now, looking at things that can have impact on the tax rate, I do want to reflect upon the school board's capital reserve items. The expenditures that are planned to be made through warrant articles and the like only come to about $140,000. That's no great shakes. But the amount that you're proposing to put in is $397,000. You have never had that high a number from reserves and unexpended appropriations and unanticipated revenues. I think the closest that I could ever find was about half of that. You've gone a couple 100,000, but never anything close to 397. Nothing wrong with going for 397, assuming that you have a surplus of that size, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that it's somewhat of an unprecedented area. That may be important because since I walked into the room, the price of everything has gone up. That's going to be reflected in operating budgets and capital budgets everywhere. I don't know how willing the voting populace is going to be to look at the kind of increases that are going to have to be in the budgets this year. So when you're looking, the questions are going to come up, well, how much are we getting back? How much didn't you expend that can come back? So what you're really saying with those warrant articles is we need that money for another year. It's a political question. So there's no right or wrong answer, but I just wanted to call it to your attention. So with that, unless you have any other specific questions, that really concludes my report.
Any questions for Jerry?
I just want to sort of make sure I understand what you're saying is a political question. Are you suggesting that we, add $400,000 to our proposed budget and not project to fund anything out of surplus?
No, I'm not making a recommendation on anything. I'm simply calling awareness to the fact that in order for you to fund those capital reserve items, you have to do it by not spending all of your operating budget. So if you've got 7 items in there, as soon as your surplus is exhausted, you stop funding items. So your warrant articles are going to need to be ordered such that the most important things to you are at the top of the list. They would get funded first while funds are still there. The other thing that the school district has never done, you don't have to fund capital reserves from unanticipated revenue or unexpended appropriations. You can just add it to the tax rate. You walk away from a school district meeting, you know you've got it. But you're going in requesting a much bigger number.
Right, that's what I was suggesting. So we would not do this business of, funding only if there's a surplus. We would,
That's the prerogative of the board.
yeah.
Others?
And I just want to say thank you for explaining this clearly and having it very well put together.
Well, I've been doing this for a little while, so the answers kind of come easily. All right, in that case, if there are no other questions,
Yeah, a couple. I don't know if they're questions or comments. I got to decipher my own writing here, Jerry. So I guess one comment, and it's actually for Josh, so we can talk about it later. But I assume when we're prioritizing, there's at least a half a thought to the possibility of the hill renovation. So when we're talking about things like flooring replacement, the schedule up there looks possibly a little bit different 3 to 4 years out or whatever. I don't know if that would impact any of these numbers or not, but just a thought. I don't really need anything. I was just curious. The warrant article. So if I'm reading this right, the way this is laid out, there would be a warrant article for each of our Roman numerals, not the sub A and B. Those are just
Well-
details of the higher.
it depends on what you're spending the money on. In cases where the school district is the agent to expend, you hold a public hearing at the beginning of a school
Right.
board meeting, get public comment, then you close that public hearing and you vote to withdraw funds from that capital reserve. Not all the capital reserves are structured that way. Some of them have to go to school district meeting.
Right. No, I just meant, so for example, number 16 is school building capital reserve fund deposit. Oh, so that's not a good example. It's deposit, but the ones where there's a Roman numeral and then there are sub, A, B, C. We wouldn't have a warrant article for A, a warrant article for B, a warrant article for C. There would be one for each fund, basically.
Yeah.
And the others are just sort of an explanation.
As an example, school building capital reserve, you could fix roofs with it. You could replace carpeting with it. You could move walls, change out windows, anything to do with the building, you can do that. So if you've got a laundry list of 100 different items that are all dealing with major expenses to repair buildings, you don't have to have 100 different warrant articles.
Right.
One warrant article to spend from that fund covers everything in that list.
Okay. If this one's better to talk about later at NBC, that's fine. I was wondering, because it doesn't really have anything to do with the school, but the $600,000 for the town building, and it's not going to meet the new DES rules. What happens if that fails? Like, we still have to meet DES rules, right?
If you start making renovations, you have to come up to code.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
The danger is one of these days,
It's going to slide
that
down.
wall,
We've been talking about that for a little while now.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that's changed, however, and it's almost comical because about 3 years ago, mic drop. About 3 years ago, the then Public Works Director took a tube of glue and put it along the seam where the wall and the floor was separating, and in the ensuing year, it didn't move. So we thought that was a very simple solution to the problem, but it's making up for lost time. That the gap is getting larger, and the amount of sinking is still there.
The last thing I have is just a comment that I thought was funny. The last sentence of the description of that particular project says, "And the building will be sprinkled," which I understand what they mean, but I thought it was worded nicely.
That was a recommendation after there were a couple of other municipalities in New Hampshire that lost their entire fleet. That the building burnt and they couldn't get the vehicles out in time. So and that creates a real dilemma if you can't plow the roads or haul trash or anything else. And it's highly recommended those vehicles be kept inside. But that's why they wanted to add the sprinkler system. Also, before I depart, I would really be remiss if I didn't go the extra measure to thank Josh for the work he's done on this. The difference between the CIP from the school district this year and the previous years, it's black and white. It really is. I think that we're all pulling the same direction now. I think everybody sees and understands what the objective is, and I just want to thank Josh for that.
Thanks, Jerry.
So
Can-
I just had one more. Jerry, I mean, this is, well, I guess, talking about the flooring. I've been coming to CIP for like 4 years now, and for 4 years there has been sentiment to have that put in, that $25,000 been put into the budget. So I just wanted, when I came back from CIP, I forgot to mention that at that point in time, but that I am correct on that, right? There was no recommendation, but just sentiment.
There are items that go for funding into CIP that happen every year. And they don't always have an expenditure so that fund builds up. So that if you're putting $20,000 a year into something, after 5 years, you need to spend $100,000, it's there. A lot of the capital reserves are working that way. One other, while you've got me thinking off track a little, one of the things that you want to bear in mind is the capital reserves are not functioning as they were originally designed. We're losing money every year. And it's because of the dismal interest rate that we're able to get versus the management fees that we're having to pay on those funds. So you start out with $100 at the end of the year, they give you 50 cents in interest and charge you $5 for managing it. That's not an exciting proposition. Now, the fees are not so large that they're doing a real detriment, but there's no one has any idea when that will reverse and when we actually may start making money on those funds. So you're putting money aside knowing that it's not all going to be there when it comes time to draw it out.
You have one more, Amy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just dug out and I sent to David Jodoin, I hope that was the right person, just a little bit of information about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, because I think there might be some funding in there available for both the garage and that collapsing stormwater drain to defray some of those costs.
Yeah, there was talk about the availability of federal funds to help offset that. The reason that the selectmen is still pondering it is because it wasn't an absolute guarantee. Federal money, it's there. If you apply, you're in competition with others. If they tell a better story than you do, they get the funds and you don't. And we don't know where Pembroke stands with that.
Awesome.
Going once,
Thank you very much.
twice, 3 times. I'm out of here.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. I know that it's been a couple of years that they've been talking about getting that into the format, so we really appreciate that that's going well. Anytime we can improve relations with the town, it's always a good thing. I thought he was coming back to talk about the clock. I'm shocked. Okay. Oh, sorry. We'll wait for Gene. Technical difficulties. I'm sure our audience won't mind. I have no idea. I mean, Josh is here. Got to put on a good show. Cool. Okay. So next is board goals / strategic plan. And as I was telling Patty a little bit earlier, about 6 hours after I left our last meeting, I got COVID and the whole thing's kind of a blur. So I honestly don't remember all of what we wanted to talk about on this agenda item tonight. I know that we wanted to touch on one of our goals is the communication plan. So I would like to talk about the Facebook page stuff a little bit and make sure that we're at least all on the same page so that I can send another email to Mr. Berube this week and hopefully get things rolling and not to jump ahead to 4C all the way. But we did just have that first meeting about the Hill expansion tonight, and I think that added a little bit of urgency to our Facebook page thing because the firm, as you'll remember from their presentation, likes to do a lot with community engagement and really making sure that all of the information that we have is being shared. And I think that that would be a great thing for that. We talked about it being just, not discussion or anything like that, just being able to one more avenue to get information out. So there is a section on the webpage specifically for this project. But if we could get a Facebook page up and running so that when they start handing out slide decks and pretty pictures and things like that, we can get them out. I think that would be great. So I guess we can start there, and then if anybody else has anything, other goals or strategic planning stuff that they want to discuss tonight, we can do that. But Facebook, I guess I think we kind of know what we're doing. It got stalled at one point, and I can't remember why. There was a certain policy that we were reviewing.
Looked at policy KD, and it's as updated as the school board association sample is. So that's ready to go. And I think part of the conversation was that we were going to turn off comments and those types of things. And I think you'll get the rest of the information from Josh. We just need to know how it's going to be set up. If you're going to do it from your personal Facebook page and do a separate page off of that, if he's going to give you an official login so that you have a separate Facebook just for the school board with a different email address. He can do that however you'd like when you
So
talk to him.
certainly open to thoughts. My personal feeling is that none of us should be directly managing it, and that's sort of for continuity's sake. What I would like to see, if I'm not putting too much work on somebody else's plate, is if Ashley or whoever, somebody in your office can be just the publisher, and one of us, can be the person doing the Facebook page, and we would feed her all the information. Really, all she would have to do is post it. Then, if it's me or whoever that we decide, and we get hit by a bus, it doesn't matter. People don't forget passwords. It just seems like something that should live with your office if you think that's appropriate.
I do. I like that idea a lot better. I know it's an extra login for you because you want to keep your own Facebook page on your phone, and everyone wants that. But we've tried to do that with several things at the SAU, realizing when people leave, if it's their personal email and you disable the email, you lose access to Google Docs and everything else. So, Josh has been doing addresses like HR at SAU 53 instead of Colleen Brochu at SAU 53.
Is everybody
that
on
work-
board with
That
that
would work great.
plan?
Oh, yeah. Just a quick suggestion, and I don't know, Patty can answer this, but I know that Heidi is working.
About who?
Heidi is now working for SAU 53, correct? Or was it
Is
Heidi?
it
Somebody,
Josh's?
Josh's, who, yes, who does a lot of that
Oh.
already, who knows how, like, runs multiple Facebook pages. So maybe somebody you guys want to check into, just because.
Josh's assistant? Okay. Following you.
I'm trying
Sorry.
to think of
No,
her
that's
name,
okay.
But she does a lot of.
Thank you. Thanks.
I am really concerned about our Facebook page being stinky. And the worst thing that we can do is set up a Facebook page that like someone goes to and then they find stale content and then they never ever go back. And so I think that we'd be doing ourselves a disservice to like prematurely turn this on before we have a really great system in place to generate content. And I don't think that we really need to do that much work to generate the content because I think we already have it. And so I think what would be a great idea is if we sort of brainstormed and came to an agreement on how to pull that content. Like one thought would be, and I don't know how, I have no idea how to do this technologically, but I'm sure there's a way. Anytime there's a one call on that goes out, make that post to Facebook, like just automatically, like, boom, here's this content. If I get newsletters every week from the second grade team at Pembroke Hill School. I get newsletters less frequently, but still frequent from the seventh grade team at the Three River School. That's the name of that school. All those newsletters that all of the wonderful educators are already generating, there could be some sort of system that just, gets those onto the Facebook site. So it's just getting more mileage for things that people are already doing. Because really the last thing all of us need to do, and the last thing probably like our constituents want, is for us to be like sitting home thinking like, oh, what should we write for the Facebook site? So I think we should figure out a great system to keep it fresh, current, populated, and cross-linking with the media that we already have.
Yeah, that was my sort of vision for the whole thing, is that we would not create really any content whatsoever. It's sort of just a, like you said, a regurgitation of all of our schools, one call nows, snow day announcements, anything that's posted on the Hill Facebook page. Like it just sort of a one-stop shop would be good. I think the only thing that we would really add ourselves is maybe our own minutes, links to the recordings, things like that.
So my only concern, the Deerfield board actually decided to they made their receptionist, they added 4 hours a day to her job because and called it like half her job was the communications person. And that's what she does. She chases the content to put in the newsletters and such. If that's the direction you want to go, you're going to need some support for that.
Right.
It can't be that can't be an addition to someone.
Can you bring us next time maybe a couple of suggestions of how you would envision that, so that we're not overburdening anybody, whether it's a stipend for somebody or part-time somebody out of our budget, or what kind of options we have for that?
I will, I'll speak to the principals too to see what's involved with, only because I don't know how you get a one call now into Facebook, or, what the process would be, like who goes after that and gets
Right.
all of that.
Yeah. And
I would think, sorry, go ahead.
Can I understand that we need human beings and there might need to be an investment in personnel for sure. I'm not saying no to that, but we have Alma and we have One Call, and there might be other software that I'm not aware of, like our website and back-end website capabilities. And I'd be really interested in leveraging, a one-time 10-hour technology investment that then takes, 3 hours a week to 3 hours a month to maintain, rather than like 4 hours a day.
Oh, yeah, that
know.
was an example. I don't think we need 4 hours. a day.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
So just, I think leveraging the technology would be great.
Yeah, and I can look into some of that stuff, and just for if there's easy connectors out there and things like that.
And
And also-
principals, I know the principals are going to know more about it than I
Yeah.
do, so I'm happy to.
And
talk to them.
Josh Brewer probably knows some stuff too. And I would say, one of the easy things is that if there's a new email created for it, that the Facebook page is going to be based off, that thing just gets subscribed to everything. It gets every snow day announcement. It gets everything. And then a lot of it is all coming to one inbox anyway. And if there's a way to automatically turn those emails into Facebook posts, then even better.
Well, it can also be shared. So
Yeah.
all of the schools have their own Facebook page.
They do.
So it just needs to be shared once they're up there.
Right.
And then whatever
Yeah.
we as a board want to share. So
Yeah,
it seems
linking
like
is the easiest, whatever we can link automatically.
it seems like it really could be coming from 4 different places, the 3 buildings, and then somehow the board.
Yeah. So I guess, that's something for all of us to give a little more thought to. And we can add this to the agenda for next time in case, just, to bring up the conversation and see what ideas people have had. Patty and I can work with Josh and whoever else in the meantime, the principals. I think you're right, Amy. I don't think we shouldn't rush into it. I'd rather have it turned on at the time that we're ready to do it correctly. But I also don't think it'll be a huge lift to get there.
The other thing to do, we could do it through email, but I know when you're sharing content, I've done it where you can save it, but you can save it to your own file within Facebook. And I've just done that and shared that box, I'll call it, with someone else. And so like that person is then, I've managed multiple pages. So you can do that as well.
Okay, so I feel like we've got some direction there anyway, at least something to get started on. Any other comments on Facebook or a greater communication strategy for tonight?
For me, I'm not clear with where we stand on, again, not being wedded to the words, but annual work planning, strategic planning, task list, that sort of longer term work planning, because I do have a lot of aspirations for the board in terms of changing and enhancing our communications, but I think they're best discussed in the context of sort of the greater body of what it is that we're doing and what our priorities are. But if it turns out that the consensus of the board is that like we're gonna scrap long-term planning, then I'm gonna have a lot more to say about communication.
No, I don't think so. And that's where I was going next.
Okay.
Was kind of the bigger plan and the template and everything. I just wanted to see if there was any more comments on the Facebook thing before we go there.
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Seems you attended the meeting, and I'm trying to remember from the architect when they just needed the platform, right? Like they're going to create slide decks and information. So they just needed us to come up with a platform for that. Okay.
So then as far as strategic planning or whatever we're going to call that, I don't get the goals in front of me that Patty typed up, or maybe it's the one that I typed up. I think, yeah, I guess I typed them up. I'm not sure if it's been edited with the latest updates yet. So I think this is sort of a roundtable on where we want to go. We've talked about this a bunch of times. Melanie did send a template a couple of weeks ago at this point. So I guess just general feelings. What do we? I think that there's a couple of routes. There's the one. So we sort of talked about trying to put this together ourselves based on templates. We've talked about hiring somebody and doing seminars. We've talked about doing like a one Saturday thing. We've talked about doing the long-term school board one that's more money and more time. We've kind of run the gamut here. So we kind of sort of need to put a fine point on what do we want this to look like and how do we get started?
I think we just need to do it and just put these in a template of a work plan. I think we talked about just putting like these being the goals and putting 3 objectives under each one and then reporting back on those at every meeting or once a month. Which one might be to set up the Facebook page and then to populate the Facebook page. And as those are completed and we can give an update of, there's been 6 posts in the last 3 weeks type of.
I would love a strategic plan and a whole big, huge thing. That would be my dream, but I also get it. We have to deal with teacher contracts coming up and the expansion and all that, everything that we're doing. What I sent Andy was literally only 20 minutes. That is not a perfect thing. It was just a basic template that only took 20 minutes where you can plug in those objectives and then there's boxes and you just every working meeting would just keep adding and adding and adding. And there's more. But if you don't like that setup, there's other ones, but that was just a basic draft thing to show you.
I mean, I think that's a good place to start. And I think that, that's sort of where I'm at. I think I expressed last time that I don't have a lot of interest in spending the money. I can't commit to a lot of the time if it's one of the big long ones. But I'm not closing the door on that either for me. I think that if we can it sounds like Melanie and Stacy have some expertise around this. I certainly don't. So my preference would be let's do that, what you just said. And if we get that put together and we feel like we've got a good foundation, but we aren't happy with it and we want to take it further, we can always engage in a bigger process later on, I suppose.
Yeah, I was just going to say my preference would be to, I mean, I feel very strongly that that this board is really lacking long-term 3 to 5 year out strategic planning. So that's where I'm coming from. But, 100% ditto to everything you just said, Melanie, in terms of like, I get that we live in Realityville and we already have a ton of big things on our plate currently and coming up. And we also need to leave room for maneuvering for like all the unexpected stuff that arises, like that humongous traffic accident at the intersection of Route 3 and Bow Lane. I hope everybody's okay. Yeah. So stuff like that happens to this board too, and then we get thrown off track. And so what I would propose is that one of the items that we work on this academic year is getting ourselves situated to engage in strategic planning so that in the coming 12 to 24 months, we have developed our first take, and it always takes a few years to get like a great strategic plan done, but that we've started our first take at a strategic plan. So that's just one of the things we work on this year, acknowledging that we really can't do the thing this year, but that we have an intention to be committed to doing it in the future.
Is there a way at a meeting for us to share a screen and I feel like just take your template, and if we could just put it up and one of us start typing in it.
I know that's how I've done them too, is like sharing your laptop screen and literally pulling up a template, and at a working meeting, everybody's talking and you're typing and saying, okay, this one's doing this and this one's doing this, and we're going to check back in 30 days or
Change the wording of this. And
Yeah,
Yep.
we should be able to do that. I can share my screen, we can grab a projector and a small screen. Cool. Okay. So yeah, so do we want to put that on the agenda for, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Can't remember how many Tuesdays there are this month. So do we want to put it on the agenda for 10-4 tentatively, and if 10-4 for some reason fills up, we'll push it to the October work session?
that sounds good to me.
is there
Well,
any
actually-
way we can work on it in between meetings of we can't have a working document that we're all working on at the same time, not.
I don't think so. Like a Google Doc
You-
that we're all, I think
Yeah.
if 3 of us are logged onto it at the same time, it's probably a meeting.
No,
Um,
but what you can do is, as long as you make your work visible to the public. So if you wanted to draft something and then post it, I wouldn't work on it simultaneously, but that doesn't mean you can't volunteer to, hey, I'll take the first stab at this.
Or just to bring it to the next meeting,
Yeah.
like with a
It would be part of the
jump start
packet.
on it.
Potentially further what you're getting at, Stacy, I would like to see what Melanie prepared. If
Well,
you
did that
wouldn't,
go to everybody?
I don't think
No.
so.
No.
Oh, my bad. I would have forwarded. I thought.
yeah,
You asked me to just send
My
you a
fault.
template, so I only sent it to you.
I'm sorry. I assumed everybody was copied. That's my fault. I will forward it right now.
And I can totally update it too. Like that's not a perfect, like,
yeah. And then
and you can, I know you've done this before too, Stacy. You can help me. Like that was just a quick Excel, like,
No, I totally get it. Well, that's what I'm like. We just need to
Yeah,
start
and so
throwing stuff in. so we
I'd be
can have
happy to
something.
provide my commentary to Melanie if she wanted to collect everybody's commentary and then come with an update.
I need you to be able to see it to be able to.
I'm looking for it. It didn't come up when I searched by your email address, which is weird.
I don't actually
I'll
need
find
it like right this second
Yeah,
because I'm going to
I'll
want to let it marinate in my
Yeah,
brain.
sorry about that. I thought everybody got it. That's my fault.
Can do, Stacy, is if you wanted a partner to work on it with, you can get the board's authority to designate 2 people to do this work. for the next meeting. So it wouldn't be a quorum, but you could start working, you know, if you and Melanie wanted to work on it together and bring a draft to the next meeting, that's something you could do.
And could we do that in a
Yep.
joint Google Doc
Yes.
within that?
And then it would be in the packet as a public document.
Okay.
Yep.
Just point of information, I probably am not going to be able to make it to the October 4th meeting. I have a medical specialist appointment with my daughter in Boston at 3:40. So it's just probably not going to happen for me.
Okay.
But I'll participate to the extent that, you know, I get the document and I'll provide some input beforehand.
Melanie, would you want to work on that together?
Yeah, and I will send the template to everybody when I get home because I must have used my laptop. I don't
That's
see the
okay.
email
know.
that I
So
sent
I
you.
have an email from you on 8/17 that says, I just sent you an email with the Excel sheet. But I don't have an email. I can't find the email with the Excel, but I know I saw it. I
You
know I
did.
looked at it.
You opened it. I saw it. Yeah, I will do it when I get
So,
home.
okay.
And then yes,
If we can start a Google Doc.
I'll
within
throw
the
it in a
S-
Google.
So if we open it within our SAU and open a Google Doc, it will be able to share it. Okay. It's just every time I open it, there's too many Google things. Everything gets mixed.
Okay, so that'd be great. Yeah, if you two have a chance before next time to get it started, then we'll plan on putting it up on the wall so everybody can see. We'll plug in everything that we can for now, and then that'll be an easy thing to check in with, you know, monthly as we go forward and
You
actually
have
track
to
progress.
officially give us permission to work together.
If yeah, I think if we were going to make it a committee, we'd have to, but otherwise you're good. I think you're all set as long as everybody agrees. Gene says he really doesn't want you to do it, then
No, it's fine because, you know,
Pick 'em up.
I'm sitting here listening to this going like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about technologically. So, I can use it all, but
no, that sounds good. Good. I'm happy with where we are on that. Sounds like progress, or it sounds like a plan for progress anyway. Okay. Anything else on goals / strategic planning before we move to 4C?
I just should, well, we had the SAU exec board meeting. I want to talk about, you know, because that's one of our goals, the superintendent evaluation. So since it's still fresh in my mind,
Sure.
you know, basically we had a short discussion at the SAU exec board last Wednesday. And, you know, I brought it up, pushed by Patty because, anyway, came to the, basically I can understand it, I have to say that, included in our goals was an evaluation of superintendent. But any one district does have the right to evaluate the superintendent, but really it doesn't mean anything except if you get to the exec board. So we were considering basically, you know, Patty's going to make goals, Peter's going to make goals, we're making goals, and it was going to be basically a check-in, and it would have to be before the March elections too. So you'd have the continuity of the people present. You know, we've got a ton of them on there. I don't know when the last one is, but prior to the March elections, at that point, evaluating where everybody stands. You know, some may be in great shape, others, well, we're halfway there. We should be able to get it done before the end of the board year, whether it's with the same board members or not, you know, and go from there. Then you can see, we'll all be able to compare our progress with both Patty and Peter. And we came to the agreement, like evaluating them as far as a number grade, you know, so like Patty made a great example. Deerfield says she did a 1 job. We said she did a 5 job or vice versa. So what, she a 3 at that point, you know, so using numbers, I think it's just, we basically agreed that it would be better to measure our progress, all of our progresses, you know, with, you know, Peter and with Patty than to have some sort of numerical evaluation. And again, getting it done before the March election, so there is continuity and you know, bringing in new board members or anything like that on that. So that's where we were with that.
With that, are we thinking, is anyone going to go to the SAU, the superintendent evaluation webinar through the school board? And are you saying to use numeric or not use
No.
numeric?
Not use numeric.
Okay, so say if we do numeric, I would say do 1 to 4. Because if you do 5, it's really easy to do 3. You're supposed to do 4, you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, but that was just an
Even, yeah.
example.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that could be something we all talked about. We have a full board in October 12th.
Is there 2 of them in October? Okay. Oh, the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Silly. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we talk about it then there could be a check-in in January. It looks like there's a 111 meeting tentatively. And then I'm going to assume 3/8 is before elections, but I don't, that's right on the edge.
That's right on the edge. Because I think they were well, I think they were like the 7th last year.
Yeah, I mean, just to keep it easy, it would be nice if the SAU could make their evaluation on February 8th. The February 8th SAU meeting.
Yeah. So, I mean, if the full board chats in October and there's goals created, then, you know, we can periodically check in and then we can sort of have a progress meeting on 2/8. And I mean, we're making decisions for the exec board or yeah, go ahead.
I think what we settled on, Jean, correct me if I'm wrong, the goals could still be done with our individual boards. So
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
goals are with Pembroke.
Okay.
I would have goals with Deerfield. And then it's more of a Jean reporting back to the executive board. So I think we
Okay.
could have our own schedule of, Jean goes back in whatever meeting and says, okay, we checked in this many times in Pembroke and this is the outcome of that.
But I think though that legally speaking, the exec board is sort of like the decision maker.
Right.
So I think that they need to have on their agenda, and then either the whole board or the exec board, it seems a little weird to do it in April, but maybe they do it at their April 12th meeting. Okay, well, we got the report from Jean about the Pembroke School Board's thinking on how, Patty's evaluation went. And, we've reviewed and considered that. And we think this about that. And presumably, I don't want to say it's going to be a rubber stamp, but presumably they would have the same opinion that this
Right.
board has. But I think we need to go through the process just in case they don't, because it is their evaluation to make.
I would agree with that. I would also say trying to stay on the correct side of the, oversight versus management line, like I always try to do. Would everybody agree that we can ask Patty to bring us some goals that she has for herself? And I think that they would.
She already did.
Okay, and so we're okay. And then so what I'm thinking is they're not sort of overly specific or nitpicking as far as the reviewing those goals goes. I don't know. I'm having a hard time picturing what that looks like, I guess.
Could we maybe schedule a non-public for the next meeting and just relook at what I gave you and
Sure.
see if you think that was
That's a good idea.
on the same track as you were thinking?
And if I can add,
Finalize.
can you be prepared to do some self-assessment on them? 'Cause for me, that will help me understand what the evaluative process on them will be like. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, that's helpful. And it'll give us a current state too, so we can measure. Cool. Where-
Thank you, Jean, for making this happen.
Okay. Anything else on 4B? All right. Board goal / strategic plan. So we'll move on to 4C then, which is the Hill Expansion Renovation Committee. So there was an initial meeting tonight. It was about an hour long and I was about 45 minutes late, so I apologize for that. But I think the next meeting is November 1st. Is that what it was?
We agreed for the schedule to be right now monthly on your first meeting every month at 4 o'clock. And then as time goes on, if we feel like we need to add a meeting, we'll add it to the same night as a board meeting, since most of us are already planning on being out on the Tuesday for the board meeting. That seemed to make the most sense for everyone. Hill School. We did it in the STEM lab tonight. I'm not sure if that's where it will be every time, but it will be at Hill School. Or
So the first thing is we have to see if any of us can commit to being the rep most of the time. Things will come up. I'm happy to sort of fill in if somebody's unavailable, but with budget season starting, I do not want to commit to being the one that's going to be there monthly. So is anybody available typically at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays in Pembroke?
I think we decided that it should be me.
I
I'm,
remembered you were a tad hesitant. Maybe that was just for the first meeting.
No, it's,
I have every Tuesday off, so I totally can be there every single time at 4 o'clock.
So if you're
Both of-
willing,
both of you
we
can go.
I was going to say we can pencil you in, and Stacy, you can go whenever you have the time and want to go, as long as 3 of us don't show up.
hmm
Um,
I'm willing to share it with you, Stacy, or both go, or that way if something comes
It's-
up and I have a sick kid, like I'm total, but I do have every Tuesday off consistently.
it's good to have consistency.
I
in
can
the
do
representation.
November and December. If it's once a month, that makes sense. Is the January meeting going to be the 3rd?
oh, I just had the schedule up and I went off of it.
We do have a school board meeting on the 3rd, and
Yep,
I will
and
be,
It's going to stick
away.
with the school board meetings.
I will
Yep.
be away in January.
The first one.
Yep.
Yep. And I can stay away from those for like any kids' appointments, but I have every Tuesday off. So I can be there every,
So can
That'd be great.
we say that Melanie's going to be our primary, and then obviously one of us is one additional can attend anytime they want, but we can sort of tap Stacy as the fill-in when if Melanie has an issue.
If you're okay with that, or
Yeah.
if you'd rather do it the other way, that's okay too.
I'm totally fine with it, but I'm okay if you have the ability to come too. If there's only two, if there's 2 of us, that's fine.
Right.
And then if something comes up, I can always
Yep.
let you know. I'll let you know well ahead of time, but I know I can consistently be there.
Okay, excellent. And then if you are just, bored on a Tuesday and feel like going to that meeting, I guess shoot me an email, and then I'll coordinate with Melanie to make sure that we don't end up with a quorum in the room. So if you're somebody other than Melanie and you're planning on going, ping me and I'll make sure we're sorted.
If 3 of you want to go, we could just post it. The meetings are posted, so we could just add to the posting a quorum of the board will be in attendance, because we
And I think
post
there
the
will be
meetings
topic
and we
with-
do minutes, so it's all legit anyway.
Yeah, and I think throughout the whole, sort of to riff a little bit, and I missed most of the meeting, so Patty can fill in the gaps. But basically, they presented a couple of timelines. One of them was to bring the bond in March of 2024, and the other one was to bring the bond in March of 2025. And it's like a 2-year, from there, you're talking the following fall before you can occupy. Do I have those? So we're talking like 2026, fall of 2026 at the earliest right now. So the folks in the room sort of indicated that we wanted to shoot for that earlier timeline because, we're already over capacity there. So that's sort of, we're looking at from now until fall of 2026. So this is not a small undertaking by any means. I'm sure the frequency of meetings will sort of wax and wane a bit. Obviously, when new boards are voted in March, these appointments might change, but as much consistency as we can have for now, I think is great. And I'm glad it's starting. It seems so far away. but it's, I know Melanie, we were on the original committee to see if we wanted to close Village, and it's actually really, it was cool to see in the room today because Sandy was on that original
Yep.
committee. Rob Farley was on that original committee, and he's still in that room. Kevin Foss, like a lot of people that were there way back then are still sort of following this thing to its conclusion, which is cool. Okay, so we've got a person, and I gave a brief update of the little bit of the meeting I heard. Is there anything else from today that you wanted to?
I think it probably makes sense when we get the minutes from the architect I'll put those in your drive and post them so that you guys can kind of get the gist of the meeting. But today a lot of it was organizational, and they walked the committee through the process about what that looks like, getting the systems folks and the engineers in and working with Josh to look at everything. We're talking about doing that on our PD day so that there's no children in the building. Starting the visioning session. So a team of 6 to 12 people from the school with cross representation to talk about what do we want education in Pembroke to look like in 20 years and be forward thinking about that. And then when they go to design the building, it's like, well, they talked about the fact that they want collaborative space. They want a separate gym and auditorium and or cafeteria. So there's all kinds of visioning work that will go on in the schools. I think December, January, or November, December, whatever the timeline was, but we can share that out with you. So they just basically walked us through the process and what we can expect, and talking about having the presence on social media, having really two separate, so one presence from us to post factual information, and then each community tries to rally a team because we can't promote the vote. We can't tell people, please vote for our school. That's electioneering. So you can have a community group that is behind the vote and supporting us, and they can do their own fundraising and do their own web page or Facebook page, what have you, to encourage people to vote. So just making sure we're all clear and keeping that separate. They did a good job about reviewing that. So we'll get you the minutes when they're ready, but it was a good first meeting, I think.
Yeah, and as a reminder, there was a separate folder set up in our drive for Hill School renovation, so the stuff will get put there. So don't look for it in your, weekly drive.
Hill Renovations Committee tab on the Pembroke School Board page. So we'll make sure the public has everything. They can track our meetings. They can see the slideshows that the architects do for us. We'll make sure they have everything that we have.
Oh, and I guess it's since Jerry was here, it's important to note that one of the major differences when we talked about the two timelines is sort of the cycle in which state funding is available. By doing this quicker, we're taking a bit of a risk in that we won't have any, at the time that we bring the bond to the town, we won't have any information as to whether or not we're going to get state aid just because of the way the cycle falls. I think, and I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the whole town, but I think from being on NBC and things like that, folks tend to want to play conservative anyway. And doing it this way, we're basically going into it and we're going to tell them that it's going to raise, we're going to tell them the full, without any funding, this is what it's going to do to hit the tax rate. And then if we are eligible for state funding a year later, it'll be a pleasant surprise. And I think that's better almost than going into it with an expectation of funding and then turning out you didn't get it. That would undermine some trust too. So I was comfortable saying that we wanted to go on that earlier timeline, but there is, just so that funding thing is a little bit of a wild card in there.
Add something to that. The other good thing about that approach is that you get they call it a second bite at the apple. So if it failed the first year, you can still go back for it the second year and still have a chance at funding. So that does give you that 2-year window. It's a biennium budget. If you do it the other way, you only get the one. Then it's another 2 years before there's more funding.
And the next meeting's November 1st at 4:00. Are they planning an hour or an hour and a half? Did they discuss it? Okay,
That's it. No.
but somehow
Today was an hour.
it wouldn't be longer than getting here for 6:30.
Right. They know we have board
Okay.
meetings at 6:30 and they know that we probably like a little bit of a break in between.
Okay.
So
Any other questions or comments around Hill? Okay, so we did add 4D, which was the MOU. All right.
So I put into your drive, we had a request from the EAP to sign another MOU for this year for sick bank, for COVID. The last one expired at the end of last year. Primarily, this was intended to help the newer teachers that may have only earned, less than their 10 days so far. So it's the veteran teachers have been very kind to donate a sick day toward them so that when either they're sick or their children are sick, they're able to take that time and not be penalized. So it's the same setup as it was last year. It's basically just doing it again for this year. So you would need to vote to
Yeah.
approve or not.
Are there questions before? Oh, well, or we can have a motion and then do discussion, whatever. I guess, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the MOU.
In a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there discussion? It's fairly straightforward. Okay, then all in favor of approving the MOU currently dated 10/8/2021, being updated for the 2022-2023 school year, please. So currently dated 10/8/21. It'll be updated for the 2022-2023 school year. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Fantastic.
I know that they appreciate your support as we get through this. Thank you.
Okay.
Andy,
Sure.
can we add, going to be a really brief non-public, small letter C?
Sure.
Is that nothing major, but has to be non-public.
Okay. Anything else on any of the topics on number 4 quickly before we do that? I think we're pretty much good. We'll do non-public now, or I'm sorry, not non-public. We'll do public comment now, rather. I don't think there's going to be any, but that way we will end the meeting or pause the meeting or whatever and not have to worry about so much. So number 5 is public comment, 15 minutes. Nobody's in the room. So we'll move on. So the board has need to go into non-public session under New Hampshire RSA 91-A.
All of them.
Okay, our next meeting is October 4th at 6:30 p.m. right here. And I'll ask once if there's anything else before motion to adjourn.
Can we just, I don't want to miss the meeting. So, I might be like driving through traffic. So I'll try to call in if I can, is the best I can leave it.
Okay, I let's plan on just calling me, because
Okay.
it seems to work way better than trying to do the WebEx thing.
It works far worse for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot, and then
Yeah.
if you drop, we can drop.
No, it's coming where I'll be located. It should work.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.